In this video, I am going to show you the best XLOOKUP alternatives in Google Sheets. So if you are a Microsoft Excel user, you may be familiar with the XLOOKUP function. What XLOOKUP is, it is a lookup function that was first released in 2019, so it's kind of a newer function, and in a way it's meant to replace index match and VLOOKUP as a more up-to-date and useful lookup function. So a lot of spreadsheet users that use Excel prefer to use XLOOKUP as their lookup function. However, unfortunately at this time there is not a direct equivalent in Google Sheets. However, there are a few alternatives that we can use to do something similar. So first I'm going to cover what XLOOKUP is, and then I will go into the Google Sheets equivalents. So again, XLOOKUP is a lookup function that is used to find things in a table or a range by row. And this is the basic syntax that the function uses in Excel. So the first argument is the lookup value, which is the value you are searching for. The next argument is the lookup array, which is the range or array to search. And then the next argument is the return array, which is the array or range to return. Now there's also some other arguments that control what to do if your lookup value is not found, matching modes and searching modes. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of those because this function isn't available in Google Sheets, so I don't need to go over that in detail. So if I was using XLOOKUP, this would be the syntax. So what I have here is I have different products and I have their monthly sales. So maybe I want to look up the sales in February for this product, blue socks. If I have a large table, instead of navigating down to the specific value and then scrolling over to it, I could just use a lookup function to pull out that value. So if I was using XLOOKUP to look up the sales in February for this item, this is the syntax that I would use. So again, this function does not exist in Google Sheets, so this actually doesn't work, but this is the syntax that I would use if I was in Excel. So the first argument is my lookup value, which is what am I looking up? I'm looking up the value in F2. Next is the lookup array, which is the range or array to search. And so I'm searching for my lookup value in range A2 through A5. And then when I find the matching lookup value, it's going to return my return array, which is the matching value in C2 to C5, which is here. So this returns 20 because I'm looking this up over here and then return the matching value in this range, which is 20. So that is how XLOOKUP works. So what are the best alternatives in Google Sheets? Well, probably the best one and the most powerful one is the filter function. And so if you're not familiar with this function, what this does is it allows you to filter a range or an array by a conditional that you put into the function. And so it is a very powerful function. I'm only going to cover how to use it as a lookup function here. So if I was using this the same way that I used XLOOKUP to basically look up the sales in February of this value, this is going to be my syntax. So the first argument is the return array. This is the array or range that we want to return from. And then the next argument is lookup array equals lookup value. So if I was using this filter, and so the return array is column C because I'm searching for the February sales. And then next it's lookup array equals lookup value. So this is my lookup array equals my lookup value, and it returns 20. So basically what this function is doing is it's returning the value from this column, from my return array, where the value in my lookup array equals the lookup value. so equals F2. So return the value from here where this equals this is what filter does. Now, filter, again, is a pretty powerful function because you can use it in different ways. You can do conditional, so this doesn't need to be equals. It could be greater than, it can be less than. It can also return arrays, so it is a powerful function. I have a different video on using the filter function if you would like to search for that. However, I'm not going to go into any more detail with this one. So this is the preferred method for many Google Sheets users of having an XLOOKUP-like function, and this is how to use it. So another option that we have is the query function. What the query function does is it allows you to write SQL queries in your spreadsheet. And if you already know a little bit of SQL, you might find this method to be pretty easy, but if you're not familiar with it, it can kind of be a little counterintuitive or confusing to you at first, so it might take a little bit of practice. So if we're going to use the query function as an XLOOKUP-like function, this is the syntax we're going to have. Our first argument is going to be the lookup table, and this is the table that contains all of the data that we're working with. And then in quotation marks, it's going to be select return column letter, which is the letter of the column where the value that we want to return is, and then where lookup column letter. Lookup column letter is the letter for the column that we are searching in to match our lookup value, and then equals in quotations and an and sign our lookup value. So again, this is kind of strange if you're not used to SQL, but here's how this would look. So equals query. So the first argument is a lookup table. So my lookup table, I'm only working with the data in A2 to D5, so that's all I need. And then comma, and then in quotation marks, select, and then it's my return column letter. I'm returning the matching value from column C. So that is the letter, and then next it's where. Now it's my lookup column letter, so A is my lookup column letter because that is the column that contains my lookup value. So select C, where A, and then equals, and then you have to do quotations, so you have to do the single and the double, and then an and symbol, and then it's your lookup value, so F2, and then and close those out and add your closing parentheses. And it looks like I made a mistake somewhere. Let's see. Select. So I'm missing a parentheses. Let me see. Oh, I see. So I forgot to close out this one. Getting the syntax right of some of these functions takes attention to detail. So just be aware of that. So it's this is the correct syntax, excuse me. Okay, yes, so select C where A equals, and then you have your quotations and lookup value and so you have to close out this one too with the quotations on the end. So that would be using the query function as a lookup function. So again, if you're already familiar with SQL, you may really like this one. If you're not familiar with SQL, it may be a little bit confusing to you. So another option we have is using the index and match functions together. And so if we're going to use index and match together as a lookup function, this is going to be the syntax. So the first argument is our return range, which is the range that contains the value we want to return. So that would be C. and then match our lookup value, and then lookup range, and then we'll have a 0 and double quotations. So index, so return range. So again, I'm returning the value in C, match lookup value, it's F2, lookup range is A, and then 0, and our closing parentheses, and it returns 20, which is what it should be. So that is index and match. And the last option is VLOOKUP. Now, a lot of spreadsheet users tend to avoid VLOOKUP because it breaks if you start moving around columns. So using some of these other options, if you insert a column, if you remove columns, your formula may work still because the formula will account for this shift. However, if you're using VLOOKUP, there may be times where it does not and your formula breaks. So some spreadsheet users hate this function. However, if you're diligent about making sure all of your columns and formulas are in the right spot, I think this function is fine. So to use VLOOKUP, the syntax is this. So the first argument is our lookup value, and then it's the range. So it's the entire table or range that we are searching in. And then index. So index is going to be the number corresponding to the column that you want to return data from. So A is 1, B is 2, 3 is C, and D is 4, and etc. And so to use this equals VLOOKUP. So lookup value, what am I looking up? I am looking up F2, and then it's my lookup range, and so I'll just do this entire range, and then I'm just going to lock this out of habit, and then it's the index. So the index number of the value we want to return. So I want to return column C, so that is 3, and then 0 for exact match, and we will close out the formula. And so what this formula is doing, searching for the value in F2 in this range, and then when you find the value in F2 in this range, return the matching value from the third column. So that's the 3 to C, and you can see the formula returns 20. So all of these return 20 because I'm searching for the same exact column, but they all work. So if you are new to lookup function, you have a ton of options and it may seem a little overwhelming at first. So maybe just pick one. Again, I really like filter because if you get comfortable with filter, it's actually pretty powerful. However, it can be useful to learn them all, and if you already kind of know one, maybe you just want to stick with that one out of comfort. Really, it's up to you. I recommend just giving them all a shot so you can expand your knowledge. But that is it for this video. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching the video. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions or content suggestions, just let me know in the comments and I'll try my best to answer everyone.